Royals win it 2-1.
It was awesome. For him too, I believe that's the first time getting through 7. Efficient. He had the one, I think it was the 4th inning maybe, where he threw 25, 23 pitches, something like that. But then the efficiency, getting ahead, the changeup, and the slider was really good, especially early in the game tonight.
Did you think he could make it through the 8th, essentially?
Sure. I mean, it crossed my mind, but with those guys rested at the back end, and that, like I said, that was his first time getting through 7. So that was what went into that decision.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to New Day with SSJ. Minus the SSJ this morning. My name is Nate Bukaty. I am filling in for Stephen St. John, who's in Chicago, on his way to Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nate Bukaty.
Oh, it's good to be back. It's been a minute. How's everybody doing? How we doing, Jake? You good?
Oh, great. It's Thursday. Friday Junior. There's,
TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. And then there's, I'll let you spell it out, but sorry, honey, it's Thursday. It's a 4-letter word.
It's a bad word.
Well,
Poop.
I'm glad to be
Poop mouth.
poopy.
Poop
Duty is my 5-year-old son. By the way, he's in that phase right now where anything that has to do with poop is very funny.
I'm still in that phase.
Right, that phase. Once you enter it, you never really leave. So, I showed him the pool scene from Caddyshack this week, and he has asked to watch it at least 15 times since then.
It's Duty.
Duty. Oh, he's loving it.
Baby
And,
Ruth.
My wife isn't. There's no problem. It's no big deal. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's good to be here. Lot to talk about. I feel like a lot to catch up on with everybody, as I did not make my normal appearances on Tuesday and Wednesday this week because I knew I was going to be doing the show on Thursday and Friday because Steven is in Chicago, where no doubt they're loving their White Sox. Ooh. Boy, that's a bad team. I really, and I mean this sincerely, I think Joel Goldberg is great. Like, I like Joel Goldberg. Good dude. He's done a great job covering the Royals for so long, and he's a positive guy. And he's a message of positivity. And last night on the postgame, he was like, I think we can see this White Sox team is better than last year's team, because they're in these games now. They're not winning them, but they're in them. And that shows that they're making progress. And maybe that's true. I don't know. The debacle 2 nights ago reminded me so much. See, I do have some unique experiences in my life that I can bring to the table when I do this show. And one of those is that I traveled with Royals baseball teams that lost 100 games in a season for 4 years. I don't know if they lost. I think they only lost
3 out of 4.
They lost, but if you combine all 4 years, they lost 400 games, if I remember correctly.
That's probably right.
Because I think they lost 90-something, the one year that they didn't.
Right. The year they didn't, they finished above 500, I thought, because
I didn't travel with that team. I traveled right after that.
The Sweeney team?
Yeah, that was 03.
That activated that weird contract with Sweeney?
That was 03. I traveled the next 4 years, and I believe they lost a combined 400 games over those 4 years. But they did, I'm almost certain, lose 103 out of those 4.
Well, that's when we had the radio rights.
Yeah.
And I know for sure they lost 3 out of 4 years. They lost over 100 games.
Yeah.
Because that was a major league record.
Yeah.
No team had ever done that before.
Yes. I got to be with those teams on a daily basis. And one thing that I really enjoyed about it was how much the players loved answering questions from a nerd like me after they lost another game. That was really fun. They loved it. I loved it. We all had a great time. But one thing that I did see in a lot of those seasons was the Royals in a game with a chance to win and then something catastrophic happening in the ninth inning. Like, that happened all the time. And on the flip side, at that time, the Minnesota Twins were like the model franchise for a small market team. They were winning every year. They didn't win anything in the postseason, but they were going to the postseason every year, and they were winning close games on a almost nightly basis. So there's the interesting thing about baseball is you can be in a whole bunch of games and still lose 100 games. You do that, you're still a terrible team. You know, like if you lose 100 times in baseball, you're terrible. That's 100 losses. All right, so I'm looking here, Jake. In 2004, they lost 104. In 2005, they lost 106. In 2007, they lost exactly 100. And then in 2008, they lost 93. So, yeah. They lost 400 games in the 4 years I traveled with that team. It was a rough go. Rough go. Not like that right now for the Royals. The Royals, by the way, have now won 15 of 17. At the start of that stretch, the Royals were looking like a pretty frustrating team. But all of a sudden, they've gone on this incredible stretch. They've won 15 to 17. They've won 5 in a row. And yet here they stand, still in third place in the American League Central. That's amazing. The Detroit Tigers are 2 games ahead of the Royals at 23 and 13. And the Cleveland Guardians are 22 and 15, so they're a game and a half ahead. So the Central going to be tough, it appears. And the Twins aren't out of it. The Twins are 3 games under 500 right now, so they're not completely out of it. The White Sox, they're done. They're done. The White Sox, it's like the Royals were during that stretch that I traveled with the team where you knew the season was over before you even got to May. You knew it was over. And that's saying something because we've seen that one good or bad month in baseball does not determine whether or not you're a good or bad team. We've seen really good team or really bad teams have like a really good month of April to start the season. But like if you're a team like the White Sox that's that bad and you get off to a start where you're 17 games under 500 on May 8th, your season's over. Like there's nothing, they're done. Everybody else in the Central can still feel like they're competing for something. And the division looks like it's going to be really tough. It looks like it's going to be really, really tough. But it
was tough last year.
It was. Yep.
They put 3 teams into the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out, Jake, because boy, there was a lot of talk last year in the postseason about how, this is an easier division. You know, you come from the smaller markets that you see in the American League Central. You're not going up, the division a little bit easier than the big boys in the AL East in particular. It's like, wait a second. They got 3 teams in the playoffs. Now, some of that's because of fattening up on the White Sox. I will say that. But it's obvious that the Tigers and Guardians are good teams, and Minnesota's at least a decent team, it appears. So the division's going to be tough. The Royals did it again last night with pitching and just enough hitting. And I'm fine with that. Yes, we all want to see more runs from the offense. We want to see the team not have to scrape their way to a 2-1 win every night. But they've won 15 to 17 with this recipe. Michael Wacha, last night, 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, a walk and 5 strikeouts. He only threw 84 pitches. You heard from Q before the show in the intro that Jake played, asked by Andy Rogers if he was tempted to bring Walker out for an 8th inning because he had only thrown 84 pitches. And Q said, we had our best relievers there. Why push it? And so Walker goes 7. I think it's the first time he's completed 7 this year. He's got a 2.98 ERA. And the milestone that got celebrated after the game is the fact that he has now thrown 1,500 innings in his 13-year Major League career. I find this part fascinating. He's only 33. And I mean only. Obviously, that's on the wrong side of 30. That's, you're theoretically you're in your decline at this point in your career. But if you're going to tell me a guy's had a 12-plus year career and throw 1,500 innings and he's only 33, I guess that part surprises me. And I think back to the 2012 draft, in which he was taken, I believe, 19th overall by the Cardinals. That was the year that the Royals drafted Kyle Zimmer. And I remember sitting next to Kyle Zimmer in the 2014 postseason as he was recovering from an elbow surgery, I think it was at that time. His arm didn't hold up. Kyle Zimmer, he never really seemed to get it together as a pitcher. It didn't work out. Made it to the big leagues, but never really had much of a career. And here Michael Wacha is, all these years later, pitching for the Kansas City Royals. Last year, he had a tremendous year. He posted a 3.35 ERA for the season, won 13 games last year, helped the Royals get to the postseason for the first time in 10 years. They re-signed him, and this year, somehow, to this point, he's been even better. He's got a 2.98 ERA now. He didn't get off to the greatest start this season, but, man, he's doing it now. So 1,500 innings now for Michael Wacha. Of course, I can hear Mike Boddicker going, we used to do that in one season back when I was pitching. I get it. They don't go as deep into games. They don't throw as many innings as they used to. Michael Wacha threw 166 innings last year, by the way. That's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, that's with the DL stint, too.
I'm looking back at his...
IL, whatever.
IL, yeah.
Got that foot ricochet, the ball ricochet off his foot.
I'm looking here. That's the third most innings he ever threw in his career. And he did it last year. He seems to be aging like a fine wine. So I'll lay out the show for you today. We're going to hear some sound. Todd Lebo was covering your winning Kansas City Royals after the game last night. So we're going to hear from Matt Quatraro. We'll hear from, I believe it was Ursig. Did you say Lucas Ursig?
Ursig.
Yeah.
Michael Wacha.
Wacha himself.
And the man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Witt Jr.
Bobby
Witt
Jr. Bobby Hitt Jr.
Big 2-run shot last night, his 5th home run of the season.
We remember there was a little stretch there. We were worried where the home runs were for him. And it looks like...
When you got a mouse in your pocket, you were worried?
We all were worried. Everybody was worried. Oh, God, I was last week when I was in here. Oh, where's the home run power from Bobby Witt Jr.?
No.
He's only got 2 home runs on
It'll
the season.
come around. Everybody knew it was going to come around.
The weather warms up. He starts hitting the ball further. Yeah, so he's now slugging .507, by the way. So good recipe. Get some great pitching. Get a good starting pitching performance. Let the bullpen do their work, and let Bobby Witt Jr. just do enough offensively, and the Royals win. But coming up on the show, we're going to have our good buddy Joe Valerio in the next segment. Just haven't caught up with him, right, for a while. It hasn't. We haven't had a chance to get his thoughts on the Chiefs draft. There's been some other big movement in the NFL that we'll break down with him. So that's coming up next at 7:05. We'll talk with Buster Olney. We'll talk about the competitiveness of this American League Central and all things baseball with our man Buster Olney. At 8 o'clock, we got Sherm in studio. Where's Dieter? What's going on with him?
He's in Dallas, apparently.
Dieter's in Dallas.
Yeah.
He's big time now that he's coaching with the staff on rookie mini camps and stuff like that.
Chicken and pickle deal, maybe.
Okay. Chicken or the egg? Chicken and pickle.
Yeah, he just let me know yesterday. So.
Okay, yeah, get big heads up.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I think it's because you.
Because I'm here.
You're here, and
Good.
he's like, I'm out.
Well, good. I'm glad.
I'm in Dallas.
Well, we'll talk with Sherm. Maybe we'll talk about diva wide receivers because one got traded. I don't know if diva is the right word for Pickens.
Well, he's a problem.
Problem wide receivers. We'll talk about that with Sherm. Maybe you can have a little more honest conversation without Dieter in the room anyway. Who knows? Jesse Newell will take us to school at 9 o'clock. So that's all coming up on the show. Can we play a couple clips here, Jake? Let's do that. Let's hear from Q after the game. The Royals, again, they get a 2-1 win. The Royals are now 22-16 on the season. They've been dynamite at home, 14-5. And here's Matt Quattraro after the game.
It was awesome. For him too, I believe that's the first time getting through 7. Efficient. He had the one, I think it was the fourth inning maybe where he threw 25, 23 pitches, something like that. But then the efficiency, getting ahead, the changeup, and the slider was really good, especially early in the game tonight.
Did you think he could make it to the make it through the 8th, essentially?
Sure. I mean, it crossed my mind, but with those guys rested at the back end, and that, like I said, that was his first time getting through 7. So that was what went into that decision.
Talked a little bit about pregame. Do you feel like he's kind of hitting a groove right now, hitting his stride now as we get into the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think thinking through it a little bit more, it's probably more just the endurance factor, because the starts at the beginning of the year were really good. It's just that we had hiccups in his last inning a couple times, and now he's finishing off those innings.
What did you see from Esteves in the night?
Yeah, I mean, they were aggressive. He was throwing strikes, first pitch double, then what was it, third pitch double that was a great play by Drew, by the way, to keep him to first. But he's going to throw strikes, and they were aggressive tonight. They put a couple good swings on it, but he dialed it up another gear when he needed to.
We talked to Reagan a couple days ago about the pitchers kind of trying to outdo each other. I guess, what are you seeing with that staff right now?
I'm all for it if that's what they want to do. I mean, I'm a big fan of that.
They have been even last year they communicated so much, the starters. Are you still seeing that even growing more with that kind of competition, but also helping each other out? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think we've talked about it a little bit. I think that's awesome because they're so engaged in the game that when 4 other starting pitchers stay engaged in the game, that's chemistry in the dugout too. Not just for the pitchers, but sometimes you get a starting pitcher that checks out, doesn't really pay attention. That changes the whole dynamic in the dugout. But when those guys are involved and invested in what's going on, that really builds a team chemistry.
You touched on Drew's play there, but I wonder if you could expand. It looked like a double out of the box, and obviously that inning probably plays out quite a bit differently if he doesn't hold those.
I mean, there were good plays in that, and Bobby that's a really good play. He could have easily just gotten up and thrown to first too, but the wherewithal to go to second and for Massey to stick with it there. But yeah, if Robert gets to second, double, nobody out with the way he runs, that's a good opportunity for them.
I thought Bobby play, just for him to be able to knock it down too. I think it was clearly a hard hit. His ability to get over to that ball and stop it from getting any further.
Yeah, great read. It looked like a great jump. We'll see what it actually plays out as, but he made that play earlier in the game. He made the nice backhand play. So there were, and not to mention the plays that Izzy made tonight. He ran some balls down. He makes it look easy, but some of those balls he had to go a long way for.
And Bobby's homer too. What did you see off of that swing? Did you think it was? I don't know if it kind of looked a little odd in the air.
I did think it was out. It wasn't, the best ball he's ever hit, but I thought he got it. I thought it might have been a cutter, but when I looked up there, it looked like it might have been a two-seamer that got back inside a little. So maybe he got off the barrel a little bit, but I thought it was a really under control swing.
What do you think of Cannon, their starter, tonight?
He's good. I mean, I think we saw him last year once too, and he's got a little deception. He's got a big sweeper. He throws a lot of two-seamers that if he gets them where he wants them, they're very effective.
All right, so there's Matt Quattraro. I will correct myself. The Royals have won 14 of 16, not 15 of 17. But that all changes this afternoon when my guy, Chris Bubich, takes the mound, going for the sweep against the White Sox. Tough to sweep a 4-game series, but the Royals can do it today, 110. Chris Bubich on the mound against Davis Martin. And so the Royals are going to try to make it 15 out of 17. So I chalked up a win before they've gotten one there. Lost track of what a good run this has been by the Kansas City Royals. Let's hear from the star himself before we take a break real quick. Is that all right, Jake, or should we take a break? Okay. Let's hear from Bobby Witt Jr. here real quick. The offensive hero, the guy that also makes plays defensively as well. And as he always says, the boys are playing some ball. And here is Bobby Witt Jr. from after the game.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I'll keep saying it that we got pretty much 5 aces, 5 horses out there throwing. But just to see what he's been doing and just how consistent he is and just how every one of our guys are, it's incredible. And just the work they put in and just the camaraderie they have with each other and just how they're always in game, just talking about stuff when they're not pitching, when they're pitching, just figuring out what sequences they want to do, and then just what he's done has been throughout his whole entire career. I think he's, his 1,500th inning tonight or whatever it was, and so it's just incredible just to see, and he's just getting after it.
Kind of the rotation as a whole, I just wondered, as a defender and as a hitter, what that is like going out there every night, knowing what you said about this rotation.
Yeah, it fires you up, really. It's just, you just got to do your job, get a couple runs, and then we're in a good spot just because of just how they work and just how they do things. It's just really, really special.
You mentioned that camaraderie of the pitchers kind of bleeds over to you guys on the bench too, because they're all engaged in the game, even when they're not starting. And do you feel that when they're all on the bench talking about what's going on during the game?
Yeah, you see it. That's for sure. Yeah.
Can you reconstruct your play in the ninth inning?
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure to keep the ball in the infield, and then I saw Matt C. It's almost like kind of muscle memory at that point, just knowing where he's at, knowing where I'm at, and just put up the middle a lot now. And so we just kind of just know where each other are, and so I just kind of knew he was going to be there, and so yeah.
So I imagine you don't have enough time to tell him, hey, get second there, because it seemed like he obviously at least could attempt to do what you did on that play, that one of you guys has to cover second.
Yeah, it's one of those plays where you're just trying to keep it in the infield and try to get an out.
How did you know you needed to go to second there instead of, you probably could have thrown to first, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was just one of those instincts type plays where you just kind of try to make the play and just get an out.
Were you a little bit surprised when Robert hit the ball down the line that he didn't go to second base when Drew made a nice play on it? Was that a little bit surprised and he looked back and he was still on first?
If he would have went, I think Drew would have thrown him out. So, but yeah, just one of those things where Drew made a great play, and those are the little things. You do little things right, you're going to be in a good spot.
What did you see on that sinker from Cannon, able to turn on that pretty quickly?
Yeah, just being able to kind of still just kind of fine-tuning things in the swing and trying to get it right, and then, yeah, I was able to kind of be on time and get a pitch.
It was a sinker?
Yeah, sinker in, yeah.
What do you guys feel just like in the clubhouse? Things are going well. I know it's a long season, a little rough stretch earlier, good stretch now. How do you kind of keep it on that even keel?
This is the team we are, and so I don't see it as a good stretch, bad stretch, whatever. It's just this is who we are as a team. This is how we're going to come out each and every night and try to win every game.
This is who we are as a team. Bobby Witt Jr., winners of 14 of 16, the Kansas City Royals, and in a tough race in the American League Central. We're going to take a break. When we come back, our good buddy Joe Valerio will join us. We'll talk a little Chiefs, a little NFL next on New Day with SSJ. Welcome back to New Day with SSJ. Excited to talk to our good buddy. We haven't heard from him in a while. Joe Valerio. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Nate, good morning. How are you, my friend? How's everything going? Hey, listen, I got to say one thing. In my new job, I took a new job about a little less than a year ago, and I cover a lot of the wheat belt, the Dakotas, Iowa, of course, Kansas, Missouri, Texas, and then down through and then to the rest of the western part of the U.S. And I'll tell you, man, the Chiefs are really popular in a lot of the upper Midwest. And, even though you got the Vikings and the Packers there close, I mean, man, I'm running into more and more Chiefs fans up in that part of the world, and it's really refreshing.
I mean, which team would be the most fun to root for if you're somebody from the upper Midwest? I mean, the team that wins the Super Bowls or those other guys?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, they're not just bandwagoners. They're people that, they'll be like, I'll talk to them and say, yeah, my dad was a Chiefs fan, and my granddad was a Chiefs fan, and my grandma was a Chiefs fan. Like, it's really, and it goes back. It's really not just the recent times, and it's really been refreshing to see in my travels through what I call the old wheat belt.
Yeah.
But really fun stuff. So a lot of great stuff ahead for this team, I think, with the draft and everything that's going down in free agency.
All right, well, let's get into to the draft and free agency then. And obviously, as an offensive lineman yourself, the first thing we want to ask you about is that first pick that the Chiefs had, Josh Simmons. There was a lot of talk going into the draft that we all know the Chiefs could use a tackle and they could use a long-term solution at that position, but it's usually pretty hard to get an elite tackle if you're not drafting early in the draft or spending a ton of money in free agency. Unless there's a guy like Josh Simmons who has some sort of injury issue that causes him to drop, and that's what happened, and the Chiefs took him. What do you think?
Well, number one, I think, for not just being a homer here, I think Josh Simmons is a top 10 pick if he doesn't have that injury. Just watching film, seeing the way he's aggressive on the field, his athleticism. And obviously, a lot of people these days, it's a win now mentality, right? So they've got to have the return on their investment pretty darn quickly. And look, I give the Chiefs credit for doing it and for going after it. They must know something that a lot of people didn't know, that, when they took a look at his physicals and thinking about the injury and the way that they can get him to come back from something like that, full bore when the time is ready. Plus the fact of, signing Jalen Moore to give them that insurance with him coming in probably as the starter. I thought it was a great move. I give it an A+ because, it was their biggest need. Well, who are they going to find at 31? Well, right, who were they really going to find down there, that fit the bill for them? And Brett Veach has a great way of finding talent, and I'm pretty excited about the pick, given the fact that they have Jalen Moore. I know he's not like an all-pro starter, full boat starter for the last part of his career, but you know what? He's a solid backup, and maybe that's the way to go now. Maybe we've seen with some of these big-time free agent signings that were all-pro type guys what happens, and maybe Brett Veach knows a little something.
Yeah, when you talked about the fact that it's a win-now league and maybe that's one of the reasons that Simmons dropped, I think there's something maybe to be said for that. But I also feel like I think that people that run businesses are very risk-averse. It's when you have a first-round pick, there's a value to it that you're going to theoretically get several years of a good player at a cheaper rate, right, than if you have to go buy that guy in free agency or whatever. So, it's a really valuable thing to have this first pick. And I think that a lot of GMs are scared to draft somebody that might not work out, right? Like the risk scares them away. And I don't know about you, Joe, but I'm kind of like when you're drafting in the bottom third of the first round, it's kind of a risk. I mean, honestly, every draft pick is a risk, right? Like there's a lot of guys that go in the first round that don't end up panning out.
Right. It's you're right. Number one, you're absolutely right. In a league like this where, it's kind of like with the eye on you and social media, the mainstream media, people want you to win now. Fans have gotten into that. We're an instant gratification country at this point. It's not like when I was growing up, in the 70s and 80s. And, I'm, obviously growing up in Philadelphia, an Eagles fan, did I want the Eagles to win the Super Bowl? Absolutely. Was I excited when they went in 1980? Absolutely. But, they were my guys, every year in and year out, right? It was, names that maybe some Chiefs fans, well, of course they're going to remember Ron Jaworski because he played with the Chiefs for a little bit, but, it was Jaws. It was Bill Bergey, middle linebacker. It was John Bunting, Carl Hairston, who were all Chiefs coaches, Herm Edwards, right, Chiefs coach. Those were my guys. And, we used to go to training camp right out here at Widener University, right outside of Philadelphia. And, we carry their helmets like the kids used to up at River Falls, let us use their bikes, drive them around. They were my guys. I didn't care whether they were 1-15 or 15-1 because I was rooting for guys that were going to be there year in and year out. Today, as, I guess it was Jerry Seinfeld, I think he used to put it in one of his comedy bits, we root for jerseys. You know what I mean? We're rooting for a color of a team, right? Red, yellow, purple, green, black, whatever, right? So we're rooting for the color of the jerseys, and it's we're kind of in that, Instagram, Facebook, scroll, instant gratification world, and people want winners. And I know I'm going off on a weird sociological tangent here, but that's why I think people have that. And I think the success of the Chiefs has given them the luxury, right, through great free agent pickups, through having a guy like Patrick Mahomes that we stole in the draft. It shows the fans and it shows the media that once you have the success, you can be a little bit more careful, right, because they have the foundation. Now it's about filling in the cracks, right? It's about finding the right pick for the right time, for not only the short term, but the medium term and the long term as well. And that's what the luxury of being a winner. Right now, a lot of pressure on teams like the Cowboys, right, who have been kind of a historical franchise, pressure to win now. What's going on? In the media, beating them up, fans beating them up. And teams go through that when they're not successful. And I think there's a lot more eyes on it. You look at a lot of the teams that are drafting to fill in are generally the teams that are, that have success, and it's like a chicken. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, we'll see. I mean, if they hit on this gamble that they took, they hit big time, because all of a sudden, for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era, they'd actually have a legitimate sense of stability at the left tackle position. It's been a revolving door up until this point. Joe, what other picks did you like? I mean, anything else that from the Chiefs draft really stand out to you?
I love Omar Norman Lott. I thought that was an incredible pick, because he's probably just, I'm not a draft guru, right? We do that. Jeff Fedot and I talked with Eric Edholm from, he writes for the NFL, and he was on, and he does a great draft board. I'm not Mel Kiper, I'm not Eric Edholm, but I feel like this guy, from what I have seen, is probably the best pass rushing defensive tackle coming out in the draft. Just, like that Chris Jones type, who could probably play defensive end if he had the right training, and had the right, path, if he would have started out as a defensive end and didn't put on all that weight to clog it up in the middle. And I love his attitude, right? Jeff and I talked about it on our podcast last night. We recorded it, and, it's like he is in awe of being part of the Chiefs organization. And Nate, and today with social media and, ESPN having multiple channels and newspapers and everybody writing about stuff all the time, there's an exposure that these picks, these young guys, when they're getting drafted, there's an exposure they have that I didn't have, or anybody pre-social media didn't have, right? Or before, ESPN had the Ocho, right? It's he's in awe, even though he's been living this life at a school like Tennessee for, the last several years, right? Going to a place like Tennessee, which, quite frankly, it's probably more popular there than most NFL franchises, right? Barring, a lot of the bigger, winners in the NFL. He's played NFL football for the last several years, right? But he was still in awe. He's he was quoted. He was saying how awestruck he was, how much he was appreciative of what he's doing. I think that attitude is what's going to differentiate him, besides his physical skills and being one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles coming out. I just think having mentors like Mike Pennell, Jerry Tillery, Chris Jones, having them as mentors, I think this kid's going to be, I think he's going to end up like on that George Karlaftis path where he's going to be a constant learner. You know, you hear about George working out with Tamba Ali in the off season, learning all kinds of mixed martial arts so he can be better. He's a hardworking kid. I'm excited about that pick, and I think it was a need. You know, losing Tershawn Wharton and Derek Nottie, it was obviously something they needed to do to build some depth. So awesome pick there in round 2.
Yeah, and I you know, we think so much about edge rushers getting to the quarterback, Joe, but we've seen it with Chris Jones. Guys that can collapse the pocket and create pressure through the middle, to me, they almost make a bigger impact on the game sometimes because they mess up the quarterback's rhythm and throwing platform. You know, like if you can get pressure straight up the middle in the pocket, even if you're not getting sacks, that just seems to make a huge difference in the game. And as you mentioned, you lose Turk Wharton. They could use somebody in that position. I'm curious how much you think he'll play, you know, because that's the one thing is he didn't play as much in Tennessee as maybe some of the guys they think would have gotten drafted typically that high in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Coach Spagnuolo he's a rotation guy, right? You know, sometimes you'll see Chris Jones even in some kind of like he puts a lot of confidence in the players, even in a tough situation, you know, down in the red zone, you know, Chris will get a spell. He believes in his players and he believes in the scheme. And I think he will rotate to begin. I don't think he's going to start at the beginning. I think he's going to have to earn that spot, right? By rotating through, cutting his teeth, you know, showing his chops, and then he'll work his way into what is now almost becoming an older group, right? These guys are getting up in age, and that's a you know, that defensive tackle spot's a position that ages you fast. You know, you're getting double teamed every play. You know, you're getting banged around because, you know, people forget, like, even though you're on defense and you're going forward, like when you play defensive tackle, right, it's like you're a ping pong ball in there because when offensive line rotate the protection, right, when they slide the protection. So let's say you got 2 defensive tackles over the guards and the center's uncovered, which generally 90% of the time that's what happens in a normal 4-man rush pass, right? And then you bring a blitzer somewhere off the edge or up the middle. But like the center's uncovered, and like when they call out the strength of the formation, that center, you know, Creed Humphrey's sliding to the right. He'll say right, 52, 54. He'll point to a guy that he's going to slide to. And then when that defensive tackle gets stood up by the offensive guard, we used to call it sauce it up the ribs. Ask Grunny about it sometime. That was Grunny's sauce up the ribs, because, you know, obviously it was twofold, right? It was double entendre because we're in Kansas City, everybody's eating ribs, and you know you're trying to hit the guy in the ribs with your helmet or your shoulder. And it was like, sauce him up, guys. That's what we would say. And like the guard would stand him up, Zotter, Will Shields stand up, and Timmy would come like a bowling ball, like a wrecking ball, and just wail, and he would wail on the guy's ribs. That happens almost every pass protection to a defensive tackle, unless, you know, they have a blitzer that comes over the center. And then in the running plays, you know, they're getting double teamed by the center and the guard, or the guard and tackle, depending if it's onside backside. So it is not a fun position to play, and you're getting beat up all the time. You know, think about things like the tush push and what that defensive tackle is doing right there. So anyway, long answer to a short question. You know, it's a place where Coach Spagnuolo has learned to rotate guys through, and they will rotate, and I know he will get some time, and he will build more and more of that time as I use that term again, cuts his teeth.
Well, speaking of time, I wish we had more time to talk to you, Joe, but we have to break, I'm being told. So this has been great catching up with you. I hope you enjoy your continued travels in the Wheat Belt, and please remind everybody, if they didn't get enough of you right now, where they can catch your podcast.
Yeah, listen on the Believe Network, BLEAV, Believe in Chiefs, and I do it with my podcast partner, Jeff Fedotin, who writes for Forbes magazine and covers the Chiefs and the NFL and a lot of the business of sports. So check it out.
We'll absolutely check it out. Joe, thanks so much for the time, man. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, Nate. Have a great one, bud. See ya.
All right, that is Joe Valerio. What a great guy. What a great guy. And he's I don't think it should surprise any of us that he is all about Josh Simmons in that draft pick, but the fact that he loves the Omar Norman Lott pick, I think, is something that stands out, because that's one of those ones that was an eyebrow raiser, right, on both sides. Not meaning it was bad, but she's like, oh, interesting. And Joe Valerio loves the pick. We'll take a break. Back after this on New Day with SSJ.
What's up, Kansas City? Stephen St. John here for my friends at Diamonds Direct. Be sure to stop by and see them at 119th and Row. Ask for Angie, ask for David, ask for Tom. They will all take care of you. And you know what? Flowers fade, but fine jewelry doesn't, especially for Mother's Day. And did you know that Diamonds Direct can help you create the perfect personalized gift for mom? They're true experts, whether it's meaningful birthstone jewelry, symbolic pieces, or a custom design as one-of-a-kind as she is. And you know what? Book an appointment and get $100 off your purchase with Diamonds Direct. Only Diamonds Direct can pack this much value into a gift for the woman who deserves it all. Shop Diamonds Direct this Mother's Day and give mom the most, because nobody deserves it more. Go to Diamonds Direct just off 119th and Row, and you could ask for Angie, you could ask for David, you could ask for Tom. That's what I do, and they take great care of me. Diamonds Direct. And when you stop by Diamonds Direct, be sure to tell them Stephen St. John sent you.
New Day with SSJ continues here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Nate Bukaty filling in for Stephen St. John, who's probably gloating in Chicago right now. To any White Sox fans he comes across about the fact that the Royals are good and the White Sox are not. They get a 2-1 win to the Royals last night. They've won 3 in a row against Chicago, 5 in a row overall. Michael Walker went 7 innings yesterday.
10 straight at Kauffman. Franchise record.
Wow.
For
Nice.
the White Sox. 9 in a row all over combined with last year.
Man. So the Royals have won 10 straight home games against the White Sox.
Correct.
Wow. Well, they really picked on the White Sox last year. They're doing it again. They can go for the 4-game sweep this afternoon. Let's hear from Michael Wacha, who, by the way, by going 7 innings, now has pitched exactly 1,500 innings in his Major League Baseball career. He's now got a 2.98 ERA on the season. Here is Michael Wacha.
Felt good. Felt like our mix was really good. I felt like, me and Maley got on a nice little page there where the communication in between innings was, kind of coming to fruition out there on the field. And, felt like pitch count was down. They were swinging early. They were aggressive at, making quality pitches, and defense was playing great behind me. Izzy running some balls down out there, Bob in the hole, Salvi with some tough spinners, but overall it was a good outing for sure.
You did expand a little bit on your mix. Obviously the execution and efficiency was there, but it seemed like you were able to keep them off balance with the full arsenal.
Right. No, I feel like just, things are starting to come around where, can throw stuff for strikes at any counts and then able to expand on it whenever I need to. So, felt like, I got some weapons that, can stay unpredictable and, stay on the attack with them.
You talked about communication with Maley. Just what can you expand on that? What are you talking about with taking that out to the field?
Yeah, just going over the next 3-4 hitters in the dugout and kind of the plan on how to attack them and things like that. So yeah.
We talked to Reagans a couple days ago about how the starters kind of competing against each other. I guess what's it like right now with those guys kind of in tune to your start and everybody putting up good outings here in a row?
Yeah, no. We feel like it's a strength of us is going out there and having good quality outings, and we want to keep building off of each one. And so if somebody goes out there and shoves, we want to back it up with another one and keep that momentum on our side. And we're each other's biggest fans in that dugout, and we want to hear, we want to learn, and keep advancing our game to another level.
Q was talking about that in there. You guys really are engaged in the game as the starters when you're not pitching. I'm guessing that's not the case everywhere that you've ever pitched, that maybe people aren't as quite as engaged as they are here? And what does that offer for you guys?
I think it's the type of guys that we have, that are wanting to learn and wanting to, kind of take their game to another level. And, you can learn a lot from this game just by being in that dugout and watching how hitters swing, how hitters react to certain pitches, and I try to be out there as much as I can to support my guys first, but also to try to keep learning in this game for sure.
To get through 7 for the first time, how do you feel physically and just mentally knowing that you put up 7 shutouts? Yeah,
no, I feel good. I was ready to keep going there. Felt like the pitch count was good, but overall, body and arm and everything's been feeling really good.
You're kind of hitting your stride right now. I mean, last year we kind of talked about the slower start, and then maybe this year too a little bit, but it seems like right now you're kind of hitting a groove.
Right. Yep. Just taking some things from each outing. Yep. Doing a little self-evaluation. Going over each outing. What can we do better? What can we improve on from outing to outing? Whether we work on it in catch play or in the bullpen, or is it a mentality side of it? Just always learning and always trying to take that game to another level. But this is a good one tonight, good one to build on, and look forward to the next one.
Jake, did you hear what he said there when he was talking about how the pitchers are all rooting for each other? If one guy goes out there and does what?
Shoves it up their ass.
Shoves. If a guy shoves, that's your. You like that phrase now? right?
I like now that Boddicker filled us in on the meaning.
What it means to shove?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big fan of it.
The Royals have been shoving.
Yeah, they have. They lead the majors in quality starts with 18.
That's Boddicker's favorite stat.
It is. That's why I reference it.
Quality starts.
It means something.
3 in a row, I believe, in terms of quality starts for Waka Waka. I do think that the Chiefs, the Royals fans, need to come up with some kind of song to go along to the words of that old Shakira song, you know? Tamina mina, waka waka. Oh, he's been good. My guy Bubich is going this afternoon, and I don't care what Steven says. He's still good. Going for the sweep against the White Sox. We'll talk baseball and more with Buster Olney coming up next. This is New Day with SSJ.